Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Devin. If you're new here, I'm an artist based in the Adirondack Mountains of upstate New York. Today we're going to be going over how I paint a gouache portrait. So I've decided to go ahead and paint this in my sketchbook. This is an Art Talents or Art Creation sketchbook. It's not necessarily meant for watercolor or gouache, but I decided to go ahead and give it a go. I had a little visit this day from our deer. She likes to come and visit. Usually she has last year's baby with her. I haven't seen her in a little bit, so maybe they've split up for the summertime, but I hope to see her again soon. So I just sketched my portrait in my sketchbook, made sure that I was really happy with it, and I'm sealing everything in with a light wash of bright pink watercolor. I like watercolor because it is permanent. It's not going to be lifted when I put the gouache down, or if I do some light washes of water over top, it's not going anywhere. It also seals in my pencil, so my drawing is not going to smudge. I am going right in with one of my darkest values. I've decided to go ahead and keep my palette really simple. I'm only using white, red, yellow, and blue. Towards the end-ish, I do add in black for the headset. I just find that putting in my darkest values and then going in and blocking in some of the biggest shapes is what really helps me to have the best results. Also, if you are having difficulty finding a good reference photo, typically I use Pinterest, but I've noticed recently that it's kind of oversaturated. I feel like a lot of artists are using Pinterest. It's a really good resource for reference photos. So I've actually found a photographer. He's on Instagram as Earth's World. I have definitely mentioned him before in previous videos. He has some really fantastic portraits. Typically they're candids of people that he sees in festivals and other events, but they certainly are some characters on there. If you like to do caricature work, then highly recommend Earth's World. It does take a little bit of digging for me to find one that really speaks to me, someone that I really want to paint, but they're definitely more unique faces than what you typically see on Pinterest. So there's a lot of debate as to how you can use gouache. I don't think that there's any one right way. I use many different methods, especially like even for this portrait. I go in with more light watercolor type washes, and then other times I go in really thick. Typically when I first start, I do go in a little bit heavy-handed, just because I would much rather have too much paint than not enough. I'd rather have a blob of solid color than have, a section of the portrait, especially like in the cheeks or on the forehead where it's typically a solid tone. I would rather not have that be super splotchy or anemic looking. So I do go in a little bit heavy-handed at first. Typically you want your gouache to sort of be the consistency of like heavy cream. You want it to not be super watery where it's going to be just dripping off your paintbrush, but you don't want it straight from the tube. I find that if I have my desired amount of paint on my paintbrush, I go ahead and put it on my paper. I feel like my paintbrush is drying out a little bit. I'll just go ahead, dip the very tippy end of my paintbrush in water and put it on my palette, and that helps to kind of rehydrate things. It's been very hot here the last couple days in upstate New York, so my paint palette has been drying almost immediately. And for gouache, I usually just use a butcher tray with some damp paper towel. When I work with acrylic, I prefer a Masterson's Stay Wet palette, but because I work in gouache just kind of here and there, and I'm kind of fickle about it, I do prefer the butcher tray. At about this point, I was getting a little bit frustrated with the skin tone. I felt like it was looking a little bit splotchy, so I decided to go ahead and block in his shirt. He's wearing like a gray heather colored shirt, and so I just go in and I block that in. I'm not really terribly worried if this is see-through. I kind of want the edge to vignette a little bit so that it doesn't look like it's like got a harsh line on the edge. I prefer it if it kind of melts in with the background a little bit. Because that bright pink background is so warm, I found that putting the cold color gray down helped me realize that the colors that I was choosing were correct. I was a little bit worried. I know that color doesn't necessarily matter as much as value and tone do, but I was a little worried that they were looking a little bit too gray. Once I put that gray of his shirt down, I felt so much more confident about the color choices that I was making. This has to be one of my favorite portraits that I've done in a while. Recently, I've been drawing and painting a lot of mushrooms because I got into a local gallery and I need to have some artwork prepared for when that show comes up. It's not for a while, but I would like to get into some other galleries while I'm waiting for this one to come around. So I haven't really been painting as many portraits as I typically do. I did also just have a commission, so I have 3 pet portraits that I had to get done. So I got all of that done last week, and now on my weekend off from work, I'm just kind of having fun in my sketchbook. I feel like it's a treat to myself and that I kind of have worked for it and deserve it. So as I'm going in with the finer details in the eye and in the glasses, I'm really not dedicated to anything in particular that I put down here. I'm just trying to get the right value down and the correct shapes. Color is something that I'm not really worried about, and this is something that has taken me a very long time to figure out. I remember even like 6 months ago, I was so confused about color, and it would give me a lot of anxiety. Not necessarily for things like landscapes and pet portraits, but more so for skin tones. Felt like skin tones were so daunting and so scary to me that I never wanted to paint them. And it is still kind of a crutch for me to go in with some colored pencil at the very end just to kind of liven things up. I don't necessarily think that's a crutch. I think that that's maybe just my way of working. It works for me, and I do like the end result at the end. But I definitely don't ever finish a portrait in just gouache. I do like to add in those little details, and you'll see them at the end. I just go in quick with black and white and some warm colors just to warm up some of the tones on his face. You'll also notice that I stick with some fairly large paintbrushes. I prefer to work with larger paintbrushes, have larger brush strokes, and then I can go in with some smaller ones towards the end. I feel like with gouache and with acrylic paintings, they just dry up so quickly. So I would prefer just to use a larger brush and have more longevity with it, to be able to have longer brush strokes, where with a smaller paintbrush, usually it dries out before I even have the opportunity to get much paint down on the paper. Now, out of all of Earth's World reference photos, I chose this one because of this guy's headset. It just kind of cracks me up that somebody would be wearing something like this at a festival. I don't know if maybe he was an employee or something, but I just thought it was funny. And I also really love the shadow that's cast from his glasses onto his face. I am a sucker for shadows, and I really love it when they make an interesting pattern across somebody's face and kind of brings a little bit more visual interest to the face and maybe kind of breaks things up a little bit. Typically that part of the face is like one tone, and it's like one large wash of tone, maybe like a little bit highlight here and there, but otherwise I feel like it's kind of a boring part of the face, or it's not as visually interesting as like the intricate parts of the eyes and the mustache and like his mouth and everything. So I really am a sucker for any good shadows on a portrait. So I hate drawing and painting hair. It's so intricate and there's so much going on, and you've got everything from the darkest darks to the lightest lights all in one place. It is just so much and it is my least favorite part of a portrait. So my method is to go in with the darkest values first, go ahead and just throw them in there anywhere, because hair typically follows a pattern no matter what shape or style it's in. Especially short hair like this, I feel like it just follows a pattern. So I go in with the darkest values, or some of the darkest values, and I'm just going in with a really large brush, and I'm trying to go in the direction of the hair, but it doesn't necessarily go that well because I'm very impatient. So I eventually do go in, you'll see it here, with a little bit of a lighter gray. He has some salt and pepper colored hair, so I'm just working my way through the dark values all the way up to the lightest values, and then I even go back and I think I go over some of these light hairs with a darker color just to try and tone them down a little bit. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but the quality in this video is leaps and bounds better than my previous videos. Before, I was painting and drawing and recording and all that with my cell phone, which worked for a while, but I like to listen to music or play podcasts or something on my phone while I draw and paint, so it didn't really work because I was constantly having to pause to take video, and I felt like I was missing so many good chunks of potential footage because it was just a lot of work to stop what I was doing. Ooh, sorry if you could hear that, it's my dog. She's ringing her bell to go outside, but it was kind of a pain in the butt to pause what I was doing, get my phone, open up the camera, take video landscape way and portrait way for a TikTok or for a short, and then go back to do what I was doing. And I felt like I was just skipping over a lot of really good footage that I could be getting. So I wanted to show you guys my whole process, and so I got a camera and I'm absolutely freaking loving it. Camera is a little bit of an investment, but I think that it makes editing my videos so much more enjoyable. I appreciate making these videos so much more, especially when I watch them back and I realize that, you know, how much better quality they are compared to some of my previous videos. So I'm just having so much fun with this camera. Plus I can take a lot of my reference photos with it as well. I'll just have to take it on hikes with me and take it mushroom hunting, I guess. So yeah, this is nearing the end of this video. I'm really sorry if you could hear her, but Luna is in the background and she feels that she really needs a lot of attention right now. It is also 100 degrees in my studio, but as you can see, I am going through with a colored pencil and just adding in some of those small little details, making things look a little bit more cohesive, and just adding all of the finishing touches. That part is personally my favorite part. Anyways, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!